We're kicking off our extended 2025 season with Paul Thomas Anderson's One Battle After Another, a film with a healthy mix of drama and comedy, big names, and new faces. This one's been showered with praise since its release, so we're naturally very excited to check it out. Welcome everyone to the Collector's Cut. I am Peter, that is David.
And the question is, what time is it?
There is no time. Time is merely a construct. Something.
All right, you're in.
This is a movie podcast, and we are starting off a season, a new tradition here perhaps, a season of movies from last year, now that we're kind of officially in the award season territory. Not that all of the movies are necessarily award nominees per se, but they're basically 10 films that seem to have a lot of credibility. Some are up for awards, some are just more by zeitgeist. But we're going to do a bunch of movies from 2025, and we are starting with one of the bigger films of 2025, and that is One Battle After Another, directed by Thomas Anderson.
Don't scare me like that.
I think you'd have noticed if you were watching a Paul W.S. Anderson movie. It would have been a lot less competent first up.
Hey, everyone has the ability to improve upon their previous projects. There's nothing to say that he couldn't turn around and make an Oscar-nominated film.
I actually think if I look at his filmography, he has straight up gotten worse with every movie he's made since he started in the mid-90s.
Yeah, probably.
But
he can turn it around.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, now that he's in his mid-50s, I'm sure any minute now he's going to turn out a good movie.
All he just needs is one more Resident Evil film. If we could just get one more, I'll make it work.
I will cut you. Okay. So, yes. One Battle After Another, Paul Thomas Anderson, Leonardo DiCaprio, the big name here, of course. There's a lot of other names we'll get to, but that's the big starring role. So, we'll start spoiler-free, of course, as we always do. We'll give you warning before we get the spoilers, and of course, if you're enjoying the show, hit the like button on YouTube. Helps out a bunch if you do, and of course, you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses, but I'll tell you about that more at the end of the episode. So, I'm coming into this from kind of a weird perspective. Despite the fact that I am someone who tries to keep up with movies, watches a lot of movies, I'm actually kind of I've kind of avoided, or not intentionally per se, but just I've kind of avoided most of Anderson's films. This is only the third Paul Thomas Anderson movie I've seen. The other two that I have seen are There Will Be Blood, which I saw back the year it came out, and I remember liking it, although I've forgotten most of it by now, if I'm honest. But it's been 17 years, so I'm not going to...
I remember Milkshakes. That's all I remember.
I remember Milkshakes, Paul Dano, and a bowling alley. That's kind of what I remember.
That's which, strangely enough, is all the same scene.
And then I saw... Eventually, I got around to watching Magnolia, and I have to admit, I didn't really like Magnolia when I watched it. It's the sort of thing where I might not have just been in the mood for the 3-hour art house kind of character drama movie that it was. I don't know if I was quite in the right mindset. It's maybe something I'll go back and appreciate more down the line, but at least on my first attempt, I didn't feel that much for that movie.
Okay. No, that's fair. I'm in a similar boat, except I don't even have Magnolia. I have There Will Be Blood, and I think I've caught parts of Boogie Nights, but that's not to say anywhere near enough.
Yeah, obviously I've heard of a lot of his movies. I've heard of Punch Drunk Love, I've heard of Boogie Nights, I've heard of The Master and Phantom Thread and everything else he's done in the last 10-15 years.
Oh wait, he did The Master too? I missed that one. I caught about half of The Master. I was the same sort of boat as Magnolia, and I was just like, I can't, this is too much right now, I need to bail out.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is we're coming in at the start of this review and saying how little credibility we have to come in and talk about a Paul Thomas Anderson movie at least from the perspective of someone who's super familiar with his work. But what I am coming into this review with is someone who saw the trailer for this movie about 12 times because it played before every movie for what felt like 4 months. So I've caught 2 YouTube shorts that I didn't know were from this movie until I watched this movie. Yeah, I was getting the trailer every time. When the build up to it coming out in September, I was getting trailers for this before every single movie. So when it came out, I was just thankful it was out so I didn't have to see the trailer anymore. And it's kind of funny now being able to compare what the actual movie is versus the trailer, because I don't think that it quite captured the spirit of the movie. It felt like it was overemphasizing the quirkier elements and made it look more like I wouldn't say a comedy per se, but it was definitely, the trailer definitely veered more into comedy than the actual movie is. Not that there's no comedy, but you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, now that you mentioned that, I think I did see the trailer once and I was like, oh, that's quirky. That's something strange. There's one particular shot I'm sure we'll mention that I remember from the trailer because it is just such a jarring visual that it set a specific tone in mind that this movie was not at all interested in going into.
Yeah, so what is the premise of One Battle After Another, you might ask? Well, I feel like I can give the premise. The funny thing about the premise of this movie is, though, is that there's like a 45-minute prologue before the premise of the movie actually kicks in and gets going. Because the premise of the movie is that Leonardo DiCaprio plays this guy who used to be in kind of a revolutionary group called the French 75, and you know, he's been raising his daughter for 16 years, and she is targeted by officials amongst as well as himself, and they get wrapped back up into this kind of secret life plot. But he's let himself go so much that he is struggling to get back into that life, but he wants to go find his daughter, and that's kind of like what that's certainly what the trailer as well really got to. The trailer really overemphasized like him not knowing the passwords and things like that for the phone and all that stuff. There's actually quite a lot in the movie before you actually get to that. I don't think it's a spoiler to say that that's the premise, because one, the trailer's told you that, but two, it's kind of clear that we're building up to a time skip, but it's like a 45-minute like chunk before you get to the time skip.
Yeah, I would say back half of the movie is very different, but front half feels paced very similarly to There Will Be Blood. It feels very much of like we're catching the major notes here of these people's lives until we get to the plot as is described, like this major overarching thing, which I'm pretty sure takes place over the course of like 2 days, maybe. Like it's very much all condensed there. Yeah.
Yeah, we get years of backstory and then all the plots in 2 days. Yeah. So that's roughly the structure of the movie. It is a longer movie. It is about 2 hours and 40 minutes, which, funny enough, I thought before I watched it, I was thinking it was 3 hours, so it was almost a pleasant surprise. Oh, 2 hours 40. Oh, yeah. It's a brisk film.
See, I had the reverse of that, where I pitched it to my wife. I was like, oh, by the way, we need to take some time out because I got like a 3-hour movie to watch. She was like, all right. And then as I sat down watching it, she was like, how long is it? I'm like, well, I said 3 hours. It's more like 2 hours 40. She's like, so basically 3 hours. And I was like, okay, yeah, basically 3 hours.
Once you're over 2.5, it just feels like 3 hours pretty much. But, it is what it is. So regardless, sat down, went in, and obviously people were singing its praises when it came out last September. So I was very curious to see how I was going to feel about it and have a discussion. So without further ado, David, what did you think of One Battle After Another?
Oh, this is going to be so hard to really talk about without major spoilers. I really like it. I really like I appreciate the tone. I appreciate the messages that it's putting forward here. It's so shameless is the wrong word, but it's so just open with what it's like politics are, what it's trying to get across here, what it's really showing. And even then, it doesn't feel like that's the central point of it. That's the backdrop. That is the inciting incident, is all that stuff. But then when you get down to the core of it, it does, strangely enough, come out to be this idea of like legacy and family and protecting one's loved ones and stuff like that. And I really like the way it plays itself out. I don't think there was a moment in this movie where it felt like it was dragging, and that's saying something for a 2 hour and 40-minute long movie. It's very high octane, very high tension, but even then it takes some time to slow down every once in a while where the audience needs it and give a little bit more of that backstory, give a little bit more of depth to these characters. So no, beginning to end, I really did appreciate this one. The only thing I'll say, just as a minor nitpick, is I like how it ended, but I felt like there were some aspects to the ending that just felt a bit too Deus Ex in a lot of ways. It's tiny little things, but it's overall like the experience itself, the rest of the 2 hours and 30 minutes is just great. Like sit down, watch it beginning to end. I think there is a certain type of audience member, not even one that doesn't like long movies, but just someone who doesn't like having this moralizing message or having things that relate to modern politics and stuff like that. They'll probably be turned off by this, but I still think it's well worth the watch regardless.
Yeah, I quite liked it. It's got like you say, it's got an energy to it. Once it gets into the plot in particular is where I really started to like it, because it felt like it was getting to some interesting things. The first like 45 minutes, there's good things in there. There's entertaining moments and sequences and whatnot. But I think one, you can kind of tell it's a long prologue. You can just kind of tell we're getting a lot of backstory here for the sake of like the main part of the movie. But also because it is kind of almost this like, you know, boom, 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 we're, you know, going through these characters like past lives as quickly as we can, even though we're taking 45 minutes to do it. It's less of like a, like, you know, there's less like profound nuance in the moments and stuff compared to the back 2 hours where that lets things breathe, where like there's a moment just after the time skip, not right away, but pretty soon after when things really get going, where there's like a continuous stretch of about 30 to 40 minutes where everything's basically one, not like, you know, I'm not saying it's real time or anything or one big scene, but there's one big stretch where you can basically say it's one segment of the movie. From the second certain characters show up at high school all the way to like, I don't even. I can't say it without spoiling it. So, but like, there's like a huge chunk where it feels like one continuous thing where we're still kind of just in that at night. We're in that moment, and then things slow down a little bit after that, and then like, you know, we get more things. There's a hell of a car chase at one point as well, which we'll get to more heavily in spoilers. But it's filmed very well, and I like a lot of what the themes ultimately get to. I do think there's one element of the ending. I don't think it's quite what you were talking about. At least I don't think it is. There's one element of the ending where I'm not as strong on as everything else, and we'll talk about that when we get there. Okay. But I didn't really have a problem with like Deus Ex Machina elements as much, I don't think, just because like despite the fact that it is very tense in places and it makes you care about the characters and like the outcomes of what's happening, I think there is just enough of a quirkiness to it that the Deus Ex Machina stuff just kind of feels in tone with what the movie is. Like it doesn't feel like it doesn't fit or belong in the style.
I get what you're saying. I feel like the quirkiness is very present in the prologue, but once we get into the actual main story itself, the quirkiness is very spread out. The only thing I could think of without any sort of spoilers on what it means, but is the nunnery. That's the only thing that feels absolutely quirky to me in the middle section of the movie. Like that, everything else feels very much more, maybe not grounded's the wrong word, but very much more in line with trying to keep a realistic structure.
I will counter you and just say that I found all the villains to be quite quirky. So I will counter that a little bit. But,
but I can see where you're coming with. Well, okay, yeah. If we're not talking about the military, if we're talking about the other group, they're quirky.
Yes, they're quirky. Yes, everything about them is quirky. So I think there is a quirkiness there. So yeah, I mean, performances are by and large good. I think what's so interesting about this movie, actually having now watched it, is that those first 45 minutes, Leonardo DiCaprio is definitely not the protagonist of that part of the story.
No,
it's someone else entirely. He is arguably the protagonist once we shift into the main story, but it's actually just as equally the daughter character, honestly. It's very much a twofer. They both get an equal amount, pretty much, I would say. So it's funny. I get why they market it as, hey, this is Leonardo DiCaprio starring. This is his movie.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually really appreciate that it's not just his movie. He's very much like one part of an entire piece. And I think the other person we'll talk about a lot over the course of this review is Sean Penn and his character.
Yes.
Which I'd heard someone say before I watched it, they compared the character he's playing to Vince McMahon. And as I was watching the movie and it was getting to certain moments, I was like, I can see the comparison here. I get why they compared them to Vince McMahon. So
Okay.
yeah, yes, thoughts on that. And like part of that's like who he really is and the stuff he's been accused of, and part of that's like the type of like villainous character that he plays when he was an on-screen character. But there's a little bit of that in there, for sure. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I think what surprised me is that there is like thrilling and action-packed moments, which at least from what I've seen from Anderson, which admittedly is only 2 other movies, but from what I know of like Punch Drunk Love and some of his other movies, I don't really associate his name in my head with thrilling and tension and action. Like maybe tension in like a drama sense. Like,
I was gonna say, yeah.
There Will Be Blood definitely has tension because you don't know when the main character is going to erupt and do something crazy. But
we have no idea when the blood will show up. We're just told it will be there.
But this movie, like you've got scenes where people are sneaking into a building with like their machine guns out, and it's like, oh, are they going to find people? And is the action going to break out? And I'm like, this is not what I think in my head when I think of PTA. Now, admittedly, maybe he's got like 3 other movies that have tons of this stuff in it, and I've just not seen them, and that's fine. But like, I was, this doesn't in my head fit the image of what I built up to what PTA was based on his filmography and the reputation he has and whatever else.
Yeah, no, his reputation is far more in the psychological drama. We'll have those thrilling moments, we'll have things like that, but it is never something where it is actually like high octane action scene level of thrilling. It's always this slow simmer of characters who have been fighting a mental war over time, slowly boiling over.
Yeah, so we also have Benicio del Toro in there in a supporting role. There's a major role played by Teyana Taylor, who's kind of a big part of the backstory in particular. We also have, in a cameo role, Alana Haim, which is only notable because, one, she's from the band Haim, but more so because she was the main character in his previous movie, Licorice Pizza, which I've not seen.
I was going to say, IMDb does nothing to separate out directed music videos and directed movies. So there's just a huge block of PTA's filmography of music videos for hire, just over and over and over again.
I think that's how they got to know each other. He did a bunch of the music videos, and then it was like, hey, do you want to try acting? Here's a movie about pizza. I mean, it's called Licorice Pizza. I'm assuming it's about pizza. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, just like There Will Be Blood's about blood, and this one's about battles. It's totally on point. Just to bring her up, because for some reason she's not in the top credits on IMDb, and I don't know why. Our secondary lead, which is the daughter of Leonardo DiCaprio, is played by Chase Infiniti.
Yes, who's basically a newcomer. She's done like a TV episode before this movie, and even then, she was probably cast in this movie first, and the TV episode just came out first. She's got a couple other projects lined up, but this was her big coming out party, big role to start off her career. I think the reason why she's not at the top is I noticed this as well, is that it seems like, well, Benicio del Toro was, I guess, but it seemed like a lot of the people who don't show up until the back half of the movie aren't in that upper chunk of on IMDb specifically for some reason. But regardless,
if you click into full cast and crew, it's definitely done by appearance. Yeah. It's done by the time they appear on film. But the top billed cast before that, I don't know what's their logic and reasoning there.
It feels like they just bumped a couple of bigger names because they know people would be expecting to see them, but because she's not a big name yet, they just didn't bother. That would be my guess anyway. And then I'm pretty sure your favourite character was Jungle Pussy, played by Shayna McHale.
That or Bobo.
I don't know. It's not often. In fact, I don't believe I've ever said the phrase Jungle Pussy before today. But
really? Oh, wow. I feel like that's like an every hour on the hour I find myself saying that.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Regina Hall's also in here as a supporting character, and that's most of the main supporting players, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of it is during the prologue, like, it's a whole band of revolutionaries, and we get to know a couple of them as more secondary, tertiary characters, and they come back up once we get to modern day as well. Well,
some of them do. Some of them don't. Yeah. Some of them don't make out of that prologue section. Not to spoil too much, but so yeah, we got a whole host of cast members for sure. I think we're going to be having some interesting discussions about you know, we do the ratings rundown segment, of course, which is a Patreon only thing, or YouTube members as well. It's a little bonus segment where we do, like, you know, favorite scene of the movie. We'll rate the visuals, the sound, and one of the categories we do is acting, but also one of the categories we do is standout. So, and that doesn't have to be an actor, but you know, that's the most default thing to pick as an actor. I feel like there's an interesting, like, discussion for this one between a couple of people, and interestingly. I don't think Leo's one of those people. And not that he's bad. I'm not saying Leo's bad in this movie. I just don't think he's one of the standouts of this movie.
The standout is very different from the best award. There's a major difference there.
Yes. So I will be talking heavily about a couple other actors over the course of this review, I think, versus them. I mean, he's fine. He's Leonardo DiCaprio. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's the best actor in the world. He kind of always feels like I can always feel Leonardo DiCaprio acting. Like, I can always just see him acting as opposed to getting lost in the role that he's supposed to be playing. And I don't know if it's just because he was trying to win an Oscar for like a decade until he finally did. And I could just always like Leo, like when I'm watching The Revenant, I'm not thinking, oh, this character is, you know, digging into the horse for warm. I'm thinking Leo's climbing into a horse to win an Oscar. Look at him go. Right. Like that weird meta level to him is always there for me. I never just don't see Leonardo DiCaprio playing a character.
I get what you're saying, but there's a period of Catch Me If You Can, Aviator, Departed, like that whole era there, I feel like it's just peak. Like I fell in love with the man's acting at that point there, which obviously they're just good films independently of his performance. But okay, Catch Me If You Can, I'll give you a little bit of rope on that one.
Departed's the worst. Departed's the worst of the three. I will.
No chance.
Infernal Affairs is way better, and when we do that trilogy on Collector's Cut someday, you will learn the error of your ways.
I'm not saying that there's not a better version of it, but the movie is still great.
Mark Wahlberg's in it. It sucks. Okay, that's just like
Marky Mark and his funky bunch will be forever immortalized in that movie.
Marky Mark makes everything he's in worse. That is just fact. Although interestingly, the one movie that gets defended with him in it is a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. It's Boogie Nights. Curious. But there's a lot going on here. I'm sure we'll talk for quite a bit of time on this one, especially once we get into things like themes and talking about the politics that it's tackling, the idea of kind of the generational baggage that people might have, and things like that. And then, talking about who are the more morally correct characters. And there absolutely is characters who are more sympathetic in this movie, but I don't think there's anyone in this movie who is, like, devoid of faults. Like, everyone in this movie is a flawed character to some extent. Obviously, some of them are more on the fascist end, so they're clearly the worst of the bunch.
Right.
But even the quote-unquote good characters do have some faults. Quite a few of them.
I mean, that's just good character development. If you give us a faultless character, then you've given us a Mary Sue. You've given us a character who does the right thing all the time and doesn't have any problems with it. And that's just not good character writing. I appreciate, though, that the faults that are given to them, I know you're saying, like, this morality side of things, but, like, there's the morality aspect of it, and then there's the core belief system underneath it all. And, you know, it's the same sort of thing that you can go back to, like, Civil War or stuff like that. You got the people who are writing papers, you got the people who are saying, like, oh, slavery is wrong and all that. And then you got people like John Brown who are going out and bombing forts and stuff like that. On the belief system, they're the same. Morality-wise, that's where you can come in and say, well, who's really doing the better thing here?
You just referenced a bunch of stuff I did not get, but I'll take your word for it.
I am so, like, look, when I said that I liked this movie, I like the one side here. I am all in on the one side. I am absolutely down with this.
Okay. But there's at least a little bit of weird sex stuff in here as well, if that's something that's going to get you excited.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I mean, if you've ever wanted to see Sean Penn get hard, why?
And you might have done. He's not the only actor. John Voight we famously saw.
That's right.
Tentpole in Megalopolis. So
what's the age difference between those two? Because I have to feel like it's close.
It's not too far off. I mean, I think Voight's definitely older, but not by like a ton.
I don't have a birthday for John Boyd on IMDb. Oh, there we go. 1938. Sean Penn, 1960. Damn, that's a 22-year difference.
Yeah, voice like super old. Yeah, because Sean Penn was like playing, a 40-year-old, and
that's fair.
The 2000s.
They aged him up significantly in this movie. He looks a lot older than he probably actually does nowadays.
Well, I mean, he'll be in his mid-60s. I don't think he looks about mid-60s in this. No,
I felt like older, but fair enough. No. Post prologue, like once we get into the actual movie itself, I felt like he looked older.
Maybe it's just a case of like, his demeanor and the way he's speaking is kind of in the stupid haircut that he's got. It's giving you a sense of a weird age thing going on. Which is something to mention, actually, is in the prologue stuff, which is set about 16 years prior. And assuming the main part of the story is in 2025, that puts us in about 2009. By the way, can I just say that I hate that when we're doing backstories of teenagers now, like, I remember being an adult in that time. I'm like, wait, I could be this kid's parent. What is happening? Where is time went? This is awful. But the one thing you have to kind of accept is that, I think they actually do put an age on DiCaprio at one point in this movie. They say that in the present day part, he's like 42, which is actually a bit younger than what he actually, because he's about 50 in real life. Yeah. But fair enough, I'll buy him as like 42 if you want to say that. That puts him supposedly then at about like 26 in the opening chunk, which he clearly does not look in that section. No. Which you give them a pass. I mean, what else are they going to do? I mean, I don't want them to use shitty like de-aging crap, because that's going to be distracting. Obviously don't want to recast some other actor or anything. But I'm just saying that, like, they give him a bit more facial hair after the time jump, of course, but like ultimately, like, he does not look 26 in the flashbacks.
I was going to say, that's how people age. Like, you're in your 20s, and then at some point you grow out a handlebar mustache, and that's how we show that you're 40.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So, yeah. Honestly, I don't know how much more I would like to say before we get to spoilers. I don't know if there's anything else you want to hit on before we get into it.
Well, the one thing we always seemingly hit on right before we go into spoilers, this is one of the very few times where even my untrained ear was really paying attention to the score. And it did a good job of just, it's got this ticking clock element to it. It's got like a constant little beat going on that just keeps that tension really going throughout all these long extended chase scenes. So I think it did a great job there. And then in terms of licensed music, in terms of like actual songs and soundtrack, I liked every song that they picked. I think every single one was chosen purposefully, and it really made it all work out by the end.
Yeah, I like the score. I think the emotional strings that came in at a couple of key points worked quite well and contrasted nicely from everything else that had been there otherwise. The chosen songs, they're okay. Like, I'm not as enthusiastic about them. I think that they're fine in the context they're in. Sometimes, maybe it's because that first, 45 minutes is almost like one big montage at a certain point, where every time a new song started, I was just kind of like, whatever. We've not settled into a movie yet, so this is, having less effect on me than it otherwise would. So, maybe not as enthusiastic about that side of it, but,
okay.
Yeah.
And I do also just want to say, this was apparently based off of a book. Obviously, it's not a pure adaptation, because the original book was set in the gap of 1960s to the 1980s. And it was dealing with kind of Reagan's America in there. But we've adapted. We've changed it to modern day, and I think it still works.
Yeah. No, it seems to fit. So... yeah, I think we'll get into it then. We'll just say spoilers, because I honestly at this point I don't know how much else we can talk around without getting into it. So we will. Spoilers for one battle after another from this point on. You have been warned. So, have you always wanted to be a Christmas adventurer, David?
Yeah, you think that's the side I was coming down on? That's the one I was looking at, like, oh boy, I sure do. I doubt, but I'll ask the question. Do you watch South Park?
No.
There is one episode where they're making fun of Scientology by extension, but they come up with like the Super Fun Adventurers Club or something like that, and it's just these guys, and I couldn't help but make the comparisons in my head, because it's exactly the same but played for a satire and a laugh.
Yeah, the villains in this movie, outside of Sean Penn, who's kind of his own separate thing. Well, to an extent, he's related to these guys through plot, but it's basically the secret 1% Illuminati who run all the rich people stuff is this group of white men called the Christmas Adventurers Club.
I was gonna say the 1% Illuminati racist,
as opposed to the rest of the.
I mean, that's their core tenet is racism. Like they don't care about like, oh, let's move the economy or whatever. They're like, no, we want purification of the white race. Like that's the more important part.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, I don't think they're the only ones thinking that.
Oh no, of course not.
Like I feel like this is like a secret group within like this, even the unspoken secret side of society. Yeah. Right.
I love the fact that they're the Christmas Adventurers Club, and then when we finally meet up with them, they go, Hail Saint Nick instead of like Hail Satan, and I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen, but I love it.
Yeah, they also say Merry Christmas, but nothing else in the movie at any point suggests it's Christmas time, so I think it's just because they're the Christmas Adventurers Club, they call or they say Merry Christmas every time they have a meeting, regardless of whatever.
Stupid, but makes sense.
Okay. So yeah, anyway, I was jumping ahead there a little bit. I just wanted to make a joke. Okay, so the first 45 minutes, right, which is very much the backstory of young Leonardo DiCaprio, young Teyana Taylor, right? So their characters are Bob and Perfidia, and she's the one who's
Leonardo DiCaprio takes on the name Bob later on. In this, he's Ghetto Pat at this point.
Sure, he becomes Bob later, but whatever. Yeah. They use Bob way more than his first name. But they're a couple, and they're both part of this group called the French 75, and they're helping people escape out of an immigration detention center near the border, and they've got a plan worked out, and we see them go through their plan, we see them get really into it, and help a bunch of people escape. The two key things here that stuck out is how much of a cowboy Leonardo DiCaprio is when he's setting off his fireworks for a distraction, and he's like yelling things and Viva la Revolution and all that stuff. The other thing that really sticks out is that when they're sneaking about before they get everyone out, Perfidia finds Sean Penn and he's having a nap, and she wakes him up at gunpoint. And for some reason, and this is her, she's the one who starts this. She makes it weirdly sexual and tells him to get up, but says it in like a really like, get up. And then we cut away to like the other characters, and we come back and we straight up see that she's made him get an erection, right? She's made him, he's tent pulling, sitting there, and there's this like weird power dynamic of her feeling powerful and wanting to like boss him around, and at the same time it kind of feels like he's getting into this, like he's actually enjoying being bossed around by this confident woman. Absolutely. So it's this weird thing where obviously he feels like the villain because he's the one running this detention camp, and he clearly doesn't like any of what's happening here, but at the same time he seems to be quite into this. So the main subplot of all this, whilst like just we're seeing them do their various things where they break people out, they throw Molotovs or set off explosions in banks and things like that, the main thing going on is that Sean Penn's character, Colonel Lockjaw, which is a whale name in and of itself, Colonel Lockjaw is spying on her, but not because he's planning on arresting her because he's like part of the military/police. He's spying on her. And just like, in fact, the first time we see him spying on her, he's clearly jacking off in his car. He's sitting there, he's having a rub, he's going for it, and then he gets really upset. He gets interrupted though, because as he's spying on her through his binoculars, and he's like watching them like hand out guns to each other and stuff, and they're prepping for something. Leo gives her a squeeze in the tush, a little squeeze in the bum, and Sean Penn like is like, whoa, what's this? She has someone? I can't be having that. I've decided I'm in love with this woman. I'm infatuated with her on a very unhealthy level.
Nothing else in the plot really relates to this, but during this section specifically, it gave me very much Judge Frollo vibes from Hunchback of Notre Dame. Like this idea of like, the character in charge, the one who's got like the actual rank or whatever, is like, oh, I can protect you if you know.
Well, that's where it goes, because he ends up confronting her when they're planning.
She's planting a bomb in a bank.
They're planting bombs in banks, which they do point out they're going to set off after everyone's left. You know, they're not trying to hurt anyone necessarily. That said, though, when we do the thing that happens right before everything falls apart and they have to actually go on the run is a bank robbery. And during the bank robbery, I was thinking, even before Perfidia like shoots a guard, which obviously is like a real big lane crossing moment for the audience, is that I was thinking, this doesn't feel like we're doing like fighting fascism. This just feels like a bank robbery right now.
Yes. So it's strange in that the movie doesn't draw attention to it. But if you once again draw out the lines of where we supposedly are, 16 years later being modern day, them being back somewhere in 2008, 2009, this is right during like the Occupy Wall Street stuff. This is right during the crash of the Great Recession, that sort of stuff. So I understand from that perspective, they're playing this idea that the banks themselves, who got all these bailouts or whatever, are to be fought against in that same sort of regard. Again, the movie doesn't draw attention to it. I'm absolutely just connecting dots, but it feels like something that is not supposed to be this thing of, you know, they've crossed the line where they're hurting average people still. It feels like they are still, in the concept of robbing a bank, still sticking it to the man.
I think that's part of it. I think part of it, though, is that they are maybe not so much crossing a line, per se, in a strict sense, but it kind of feels like to me a big part of this movie is that the revolutionaries, the ones who are supposed to be the good guys, who are fighting for a noble cause, is that they're not always fighting it because of noble reasons. Like on some level, some of them just like doing it. Like some of them just like being rebels, and I think that's the big thing once we get into talking about Perfidia as a character. I think she's a deeply flawed character, because by the time we get to the end of the section and like the turn she makes right before we make the time skip, she's obviously very flawed. But I think she's the one more than anyone else in this group where at a certain point I was questioning, are you doing this because you devoutly believe that these changes need to happen and that you're completely committed to trying to make these changes happening, or are you committed to this because you just kind of like being this type of person? You like being a rebel. You like the thrill. I mean, the moment from the trailer that I'm assuming you remembered was her firing the machine gun whilst heavily pregnant and then screaming, "I feel like Tony Montana." Like, she's just enjoying it. And they even say afterwards at the campfire when she's like sitting drinking or whatever she's doing, where they turn to each other and go, it's like she doesn't even remember she's pregnant. And it's kind of setting up like a viewpoint that she has, and that's before we even start talking about the weird stuff with Lockjaw that's also going on around the same time.
Well, to lock that down even a bit more, because they're not subtle about it, currently in American politics, there's a thing going around called perfidy, which is an act of war term where you attack someone despite their protected status as like a civilian or something like that. Perfidia, the Latin term, means faithlessness. It means like abandonment of loyalty and anything like that. So it is very much on the sleeve that like there is no heart in the message itself. There is nothing where she's fighting because she believes in this. And I think the other line comes down is at one point Leo's meeting up with her mom, and she basically says like, "Oh, you're not a good match, whatever." But then she says she comes from a long line of revolutionaries. So it kind of just feels like this spirit, this attitude is to be expected of her, regardless of what the cause may be. Yeah.
Plus, there's also that moment where they're setting off like a bomb at like the power cables to turn off the power in the city is one of their things. And she wants to like have sex while the explosion goes off, and he's like, "No, we need to get out of here. They're going to come looking once the explosion happens." But she's like, "No, let's have sex in front of the fireworks." Yeah. So it's all about just the thrill, the rush of it. So it's kind of, you know, that's what I say when it's like, okay, technically this is the side that we should be siding with more, but certainly this generation of them in the opening prologue, I definitely get the feeling that a lot of these characters, but especially her, are in it for the thrill seeking. This is kind of the youthful adventure of it. Now, that doesn't mean they're not accomplishing good things and that they don't necessarily believe in those good things, but that's not necessarily the only reason why they're doing it, or maybe even the main reason why they're doing it. So there's kind of like a cynical eye on their whole thing.
Well, what I was getting from that prologue, especially as we developed it, we see Leo and Perfidia get into a relationship. They have a kid, who ends up being our secondary protagonist, and we see that Leo kind of takes a step back. He was all in on this revolution stuff, but then once his kid is there, he's more concerned about taking care of her rather than the cause and all that. And at certain points, he tries to stop Perfidia from even going out and doing anything. I feel like this sort of era, this prologue here, is showing how both sides double down, and neither of them are like great. The one side goes to the side of, okay, well, yes, the cause is important, but I have to protect my family. I have to make sure that like this new thing that has sprung up is now safe and I can take care of that, which is a little bit of like selfishness and stuff that we explore later on in the movie. The other half of it is full devotion to the cause at the risk of everything else, which also is not healthy and is right. And that's Perfidia, that's Jungle Pussy, as we saw in those sequences, the people who are more about the idea of the violence of it, the wanting to cause a show, rather than what it actually means, like what they're fighting for in the first place. And it's like this middle path that originally all of them were able to come together and have, but then as it slowly branched off, neither side really had that anymore.
Yeah. The only thing I would disagree with there maybe a little bit is you referred to Leo wanting to like look after the kid and grow up a little bit as being selfish. I don't know if I would quite call that. To me, that felt like more he's like getting over it because he has to grow up a little bit, and Perfidia's like refusing to grow up. She wants to keep being the thrill seeker.
I view it as selfish from the movie's perspective because I think the movie does put a very fine point that what the French 75 are on paper fighting for is an absolute moral right. It is the thing that should be done no matter what. So Leo taking a step back and not fighting for that anymore is kind of a, well, I have to be looking after my own needs before I worry about the greater world as a whole.
But that's the point. It's not his own needs. It's the needs of this new person that he has to take care of. I think that's the fundamental thing that I would argue with you there. So
yes, but by the time we get to the end, we see that her needs and the needs of the whole world are one and the same. We see that these things overlap significantly.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that he's having to take care of a baby. It's different when she's growing up. Like, in comparison, in particular with Perfidia in that scene where she's the one wanting to leave and go do more revolution shit, like, I think she comes off worse in that scene than he does. He comes off as someone who wants to take care of a baby they've got. I don't think there's... Well, I'm shocked if anyone watches that scene and thinks, oh, he's being selfish. Want her to help take care of the baby.
No, I'm not saying he's selfish in that scene. He's absolutely doing the right thing. I'm saying as we come back after the prologue, when we start to see it, and the fact that the French 75 basically dies in that moment, not just because Perfidia is taken off the board, it's because of everything that happens simultaneously. Oh sure, but
we're not talking about after the prologue though. We're talking about just in this section, right?
No, I'm even saying just in this section. Like the idea that like, you know, we get the guy who ends up being the radio guy who is constantly on the phone or whatever. He sticks with it. He stays with the cause even after everything falls apart. There's nothing to say that Leo could not be doing the same. But he has to care for the baby. He has to do that stuff. And so he gives up on the cause in order to do that. And that's what the rest of the movie is him basically saying, like, yeah, I haven't been doing anything. I haven't been fighting for the cause. I've been so focused on this central thing here. I'm not saying selfishness isn't a bad thing here. It's not. Caring for the baby is obviously important, having your kid get raised. But it is a thing where because he left this undone, because he left this still sitting on the board, that's what causes the problems later on down the road.
I don't know if it does cause the problems that later on down the road.
There's several lines, I mean, we'll get to them, but there's several lines I feel like confirm that directly.
I mean, broadly speaking, I don't think it's what causes the problems. Maybe there's some specific things where if he had told his daughter certain things, you know, whatever, but like, I don't know if I agree with that in a whole sense. Especially since I don't, like, to me, because Leo's journey in this movie, Bob's journey, at the end of the movie, I don't think it's like, oh, he learns that he should never have given up on the cause. I don't think that's what the lesson or the arc for his character is. The arc for his character, one, it's mostly about how he's been a father, of course, to his daughter. That's
protecting his child, yeah.
That's a big part of it. And how overly protective he's been to let her go and, like, basically if she wants to go fight her own battles, she should let her, and, you know, and that's kind of where we get to by the end. But I think for him, it's not about, like, him finding his way back to the cause. I think in a weird way, like, it's kind of admitting that he was never for that life in the first place, right? The problem with him in this time period between the time jump isn't so much that he wasn't a part of the cause anymore, necessarily. Obviously, there is some complications because eventually people come looking for him and his daughter because he used to be a part of it. But from like a personal growth and health perspective, the problem is that he's in a state of arrested development. He's not been able to sort of advance and move on, and part of that is because of the baggage of what happened in that time period of his life with everything that goes on with Perfidia and how she exits his life. So it's... I think there's more complexities to it. And
I'm not trying to look. I agree with everything you're saying there. The extension of what I was saying with the selfishness idea is not him selfishly like, oh, I'm disavowing the cause and I don't want anything to do with it. Da, 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 da. No, it's the idea that he's selfish in that he is putting the protecting his daughter over everything else, including when it comes time to let his daughter explore and let her grow into that side of things as well. It is him trying to keep this tiny little portion of the world, which is just his daughter, safe at the risk of everything else, and also now at the risk of herself because she's not allowed to grow into her own self. By the time we hit the end, his arc does not come back to him joining the cause, like you said. It's him being able to open up, allow things to continue on and move on. And that's where he lets go of the selfishness aspect, where he's not holding on to that tiny little piece so strongly anymore.
Yeah, but I don't think that applies in the prologue, though. When it's just about him with the baby...
No, I know it doesn't apply in the prologue. I'm just saying, once you view the larger part as a whole, that's where it comes to.
Yeah, but you called him selfish, and that's how this all started.
I was saying that it was selfish from the viewpoint of when you're done watching the movie. When you're in the prologue, he's clearly in the absolute right, which I have said at least twice now.
But that's what we were arguing. That was the talking point.
I've been trying to clear up the argument 4 times now, Pete.
The character arc that he has over the course of this film, right? All the problems that he has with his daughter once we have that time skip all feels like things that have festered in that time period, as opposed to things that he's already kind of, already like got a problem with as soon as she's born, kind of thing. It's not like, oh, as soon as like he has a daughter, he's immediately got all these issues that we see him with 16 years later. It feels like over that time he has gotten more and more like protective and enclosed and more like paranoid, and like we just need to stay under the radar and not like be a part of anything, so on and so on. So that feels like something to me that like is really festered over that time period, and part of it is the baggage, of course, of everything with Perfidia, which like that side of that the prologue, which is Sean Penn finding her and saying, meet me at this location, blah blah, and basically being like, hey, like, if you want to keep on doing what you're doing, what she's basically willing to let her, there's like, hey, I'll let you keep doing your little revolution stuff, but like, we're going to have some fun, you and me, kind of thing.
A night of passion.
Perhaps more than one would maybe be the plan, but and she can tell that's kind of what he wants, and there's like a little suggestive, like, duck a bit like past them in the toilet stall when they first meet again. And I honestly, like, when they started like hinting and possibly suggesting that later on that Willa, the daughter, might be Sean Penn's, I actually was a little surprised by that. Not because it's an unpredictable path for it to go if I thought they'd actually had sex in the traditional sense, but to be honest, the scene of them in the motel room, I thought she pegged him. I didn't think they had traditional sex.
Yeah. I am more willing to believe that was supposed to be a signifier of this is a thing that she's been forced into repeatedly, rather than this is something that was just a one-night thing. But yeah, it is an issue where in order to continue her freedom, she basically has to do this. And it does also feel like she's getting something out of it too. It does feel like she has her own level of self-thing out of it.
Yeah, it seems like she's to some extent enjoying the power of it. It's almost like because they're the extreme ends of the spectrum, like he's like extremely on like the right wing side of it. He's part of the military police force who ultra believes in that stuff, and later on we find out he wants to be a part of the super secret racist club, so there's that. And then he, but he's attracted to this woman, and he even like he runs into Leo at one point in like the supermarket, or I say runs into, he intentionally kind of bumps into him and he's like, hey, if you got a daughter, or the daughter looks looks black. Do you like black
Yeah,
women?
She has a black name. Do you like black women? I love them.
Yeah. But then you've got Perfidia, who's at the extreme end of the left side, where she's a revolutionary and she wants to cause all this violence and chaos and fight against the man and all the rest of it. The opposite's kind of weirdly attracting in some way, but regardless, like they have this, and then it's something that she's not telling Bob about, right? Leo's character never, seemingly in this period, finds out that this is going on. At least nothing indicates that he does. So once all this stuff goes down and he's not involved in the bank robbery that goes awry, where she ends up killing the guard, and they go on the run, and we get like a bit of a chase sequence, and it all kind of finishes up with her getting arrested and all that. And then in comes Sean Penn, and he's like, well, if only you had someone powerful that could get you out of this, but you're going to have to talk, you're going to have to give up names. And this is where, like, she makes up the proper, like, heel turn, because you see, like, a lot of her friends, a lot of the people in the group that we haven't really had names attached to so much, but we've been seeing them in all the different, like, things they've been doing. We start seeing them one by one be hunted down. Most of them get killed just on sight. Like, Alana Haim just gets shot in the head when she tries to sneak out of a supermarket. So, and it kind of feels like, oh shit, you just riding all of them. That feels a little bit like, it feels a little bit like a surprise, because your character was like established so much as this, like, devout to the cause. I'm part of this revolutionary group. And then to save her own skin, she's turned them all in. And obviously Leo and the kid have to go on the run with new names that the tech guys set them up with, and all that. But
yeah, I feel like part of it is during this prologue, they kind of set it up to where it feels like Perfidia sees herself as like the icon, the central character of this revolution, of this French 75. So maybe she's justified to herself, like, oh, well, I can't, everyone else is expendable, everyone else is whatever. I can't go, because then that'll be the end of it. And that may be the like justification she had, but yeah, it absolutely screws over everyone else.
Yeah, I don't think I read it like that way. I think in that hospital bed when he's making that offer, I think she knows exactly how shitty it is what she's doing. I don't think she's justifying it to herself. I think she's giving in and saving her own skin.
Yeah, fair.
So, and then like she's let out, but she's not let to obviously go anywhere. She's like, I'm like witness protection kind of thing. But she decides to ditch out anyway. She doesn't want to live here and be a part of this system. So she just sneaks off to Mexico, basically. And, I really liked that the movie never sees her again. I like that we never, like, because part of me was wondering, are we going to get the T reunion at the end of the movie where she shows up? Right. And I was like, that would have been a terrible choice. I'm so glad they showed restraint. They do have the letter, which is the one part of the ending I'm a little bit mixed on. It's the one thing I'm not sure I like, but we'll get to that at the ending. But that said, though, it's nowhere near as bad as she shows up at the front door. I want to be a mom again.
They were even like hinting at it. There's a part where Leo's talking to Benicio del Toro. He's like, I always thought it would be her busting in that door, wanting to be a part of her child's life. And I'm like, are we doing foreshadowing? Is that what's happening here, or are we just saying character development?
Yeah, I'm so glad it wasn't, because I think it would just feel like a really cheesy trope to do that. But also, I think there was like a lot of power in this idea that no, she truly abandoned them, right?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's absolutely the smarter move. No doubt about it.
Yeah, so I mean that's basically the end of the prologue is her leaving to go to Mexico, and everyone's off to do their own thing.
Yeah, everyone goes off to do their own thing. We get the revolutionaries have put Leo and the daughter into like new identities, whatever, which is Bob Ferguson and Willa Ferguson, and we get this. I'm gonna call it a MacGuffin. It's little devices that if you get two of them close enough together, then they both play a melody, which is these devices are only given out to the revolutionaries. So if the devices go off and start playing the melodies together, you should absolutely trust the other person, provided they know the code words.
Yes. They've got a bunch of code words and all that. And then once we jump ahead in time, I don't know if it's the first thing we see, but it's right around here where we get like Sean Penn, because it's like, okay, what's Sean Penn going to do? Because Sean Penn, of course, is very upset. He thought he was going to have his new girlfriend and witness protection. He comes over with some flowers, and she's left like her note saying, you know, this pussy's not for, you know, it doesn't pop for you, I think was the sentence. Yep. And he looks very upset by that. So we see him after the time jump, it's present day, and he goes to this secret meeting, right, in this big building where the wedding's happening of the
It's like the Godfather scene. It's that, like, you come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding, but they invited him, and they're saying, like, look, you want to be part of our super secret awesome club? You want to be part of that? Well, we just got to know that you are properly racist, and we're just going to run background checks. So you better tell us now if you've done anything that is not properly racist.
Yeah, we have to ask you some questions, like, how do you feel about this, this, and this? And then, of course, they ask, have you ever engaged in sexual relations with a person of a different race? And he's like, no, I have not. And he's very, like, you know, firm about it.
Yeah, you say it like that. He's such a distinctive way of talking in this. Like, anytime that he's probably just like, have you ever had sexual relations? He's like, no, I have not. That's insane. I would never.
They ask him if he's ever, like, been in debt or anything like that, and he's like, I bought this lawnmower, but it didn't work as advertised, so I refused to pay, so technically that's on my record as being in debt, but I regret nothing.
I would do it again.
Patriotism.
The jet ski 350. Screw it.
That's what it was jet ski. I was trying to remember what the actual thing was.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, but they're like, hey, we're going to do some background checks, and there's nothing. And so it leaves off there. You're like, okay, he wants to get into this super secret Christmas adventurers club, right? Because one of the members has died, and there's an opening, and he's super excited about it. Yeah. And clearly, and I think this is, again, the mirroring between him and Perfidia, is that he's like on this other side of the fence, right? He's on the side of like the ultra military state police, like hunting down immigrants, and he's serving that master. But you see that he's in this for like recognition. He's in this because he wants the status. He wants to feel important. He wants to feel that sense of power. And it's why I think they're so comparable on either side of the political line.
Oh yeah. No, it's such a, between the Christmas Adventurers and then the French 75 or the other groups as we get them later on, there's this deep comparison that you can make of devotion to the cause, whether the cause is good or bad, anything like that. The idea that the idea that you would do anything and go to any lengths in order to accomplish whatever the cause is. On the Christmas Adventurer side, we see that Sean Penn basically has to go around and clean up his mess of what happened between him and Perfidia.
No. Mm-hmm. That's not, well, kind of it's accurate, but it's not accurate, I think, in the way that you just implied. He's cleaning up his mess so they don't find out about it, not because he's cleaning it up for them.
No.
Because that's the thing, is like, he immediately starts like looking for this potential daughter, Willa, and it just at first it just kind of seems like, oh, he's spent like 15 years trying to find up every last member of these people, and now he's finally going to get the last couple. But it becomes clear as it goes on that no, he's trying to cover this up because he doesn't want them to find out that he had sex with a black woman and has a mixed race daughter, and he is very quick to sort of throw her under the bus later on and call her a mutt and other various things on this topic. So that's what his goal is, and he's making up bullshit excuses to go into this town and like raid the place. He's like, oh, there's lots of illegal activity there, and there's a lot of immigrants that might need deported, so we're going to go in there and do this and this.
Well, he gets the information from the radio guy. There's a radio guy who, because he was a bit too loud, a bit too noisy, they end up tracking him down, and he is firmly not a rat. He's saying like, nope, I will never tell you where they are. You can't make me. And they're like, okay, well, we know you have a sister, and we'll do unspeakable things to her. And then he's like, okay, let me tell you their home address.
Yeah, but he did get out like he had like kids that went in and like put out like a sort of like message that tells everyone, oh, he's been caught, everything might be compromised. Like, he'll try and not tell them anything for as long as he can, but we all kind of know that eventually he may have to crack.
SOS, Billy Goat to the wind.
So it's like, okay, and that kind of leads us into the plot. We catch up with Leo and his daughter Willa, as the she's doing like karate with Sensei Benicio del Toro.
And Arnold Schwarzenegger did not make it to her belt ceremony, so she was really disappointed about that.
Nor did Leo, to be fair, either.
True, no, neither. Although he was sitting outside in the car. I think he was just sitting there waiting. That's Leo's character, though. Over the 16.
That was him waiting outside the school to go and meet the teacher.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. I forgot that was where that was. But yeah, his entire character at that point is, if we did have this set in the same time as the book, the 60s era going into the 80s, he's absolutely the caricature of like the Vietnam vet who had seen too much, is paranoid about the government, and smokes way too much weed. Like, yeah, he is absolutely that caricature.
Yep. And he's breaking down in front of the teacher, all the rest of it. And he isn't like that his daughter is going to a dance. She's not supposed to have a phone, we find out. Like she's not allowed her to have that, which is weird for a 16-year-old in this day and age. But, she's going off and with her friends.
At the one point where the military guy questions the friends, they're like, oh, she doesn't have a phone. And he's like, she is the only teenage girl in all of America that doesn't have a phone. Are you serious?
Yeah. And it eventually turns out she does have one in secret that her dad doesn't know about.
Of course she does. She's a teenage girl. Of course she does.
But it does get them into a spot of bother because they kind of track where she is a little bit, or at least where she was heading direction-wise with the phone.
They send a text, they ping it off of towers, your normal CSI stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, where the movie's like really kind of the plot kicks in is like, she's at the school dance. And then this woman, Deandra, played by Regina Hall, who was in the group in the prologue, she shows up with this device that plays the little tune with her little device and says the code words. And obviously Leo's taught her the code words, so she says them. And she's like, do you know what all this means? And he's like, yeah, my dad told me that if anyone ever knew these code words, that I should trust them with my life. And she's like, yep, we need to go. There's people coming. We have to go right now. And she's like, what about my dad? And she's like, don't worry, he was part of this. He knows what to do. And then I love that the next hour of the movie is him not knowing what to do.
I'm pretty sure they smash cut. I'm pretty sure it's don't worry, he's been trained for this. They know what to do. Smash cut, him on the couch holding a roach. Just yeah.
And he gets a phone call saying, basically a code word, and he's like, oh yeah, the code word sunrise. He's in the blah, and he's like trying to remember it.
Whatever.
And he gets so far, and he tries so hard, but in the end, it doesn't even matter. But no, so he gets the gist of that. There's people coming, so he sneaks out of his tunnel and all that, and that's like a whole little sequence. And
they specifically say we've sent someone to get your daughter. We'll call us back from a safe location. We'll get you the rendezvous point.
Yes. So and this is actually the big hint that she might be Sean Penn's daughter, or at the very least he thinks she might be, because he comes in and he sees the photograph of her on the wall and he's like touching it in a weird kind of like, oh, my child.
Yes, no. I think at that point it could still be very easily this is the continuation of perfidia. This is the idea that sure. This is that relationship still continuing on.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. It's the hint. It's not ironclad proof, but it's definitely the first time I thought, that may be his daughter, the way he's looking at her. So it's like, okay, right. So he gets out and he's in his bathrobe, which he's in for like a lot of the movie, maybe even all the way up to the end. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if he ever takes that bathrobe off.
Nope. Yeah, he's in it the whole time.
I think he does. And he gets to a payphone. He calls, and this is the bit that they played most of the conversation in the trailer, so I was well versed in this by the time we got to it. But basically, there's a series of code words or questions and answers, and he remembers the first few, but then they get to, because it's like, why is this? It's like, because it doesn't need to go there, blah, blah, and why is this? Because this doesn't. And then eventually the guy's like, what time is it? And he's like, I don't remember what the time is.
And he keeps on trying to it's the same thing where I don't remember my security question. Can we do anything else to confirm my identity? And the guy's like, this is a core tenet of our principles. If you're not well read on the material. And he's like, I have been part of this since before you were born. What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think this was kind of this is maybe another theme of the movie is like the next generation, because obviously you have that with the daughter and like how she's going to tackle things, but I think you do have this little thing here where, not that this guy on the phone's like a young guy, because we do see him a little bit later on, he's not exactly a spring chicken, but
Comrade Josh,
but this idea that like you've got like people who are so to the book of what the cause is that there's no room for nuance or interpretation. They're just sort of like going to it so strictly with no wiggle room that like, you know,
yeah, I was reading it's halfway that, and then the other half of it is you got this general, because they specifically have Leo call him out saying like, you goddamn liberal, which, you know, in American politics that means left, but in anywhere else it means like center. It means like more so than left. And I like this idea that it's the people who like to say they're a part of a cause or like the idea of the cause more than they do actually doing the things that are necessary. It's the people who get like really like, hell yeah, West Wing, where we're like, all these left-wing people just humiliate right-wing people all the time. It's like, okay, but like, are we going to do anything to change anything, or are we just going to keep watching West Wing?
So he gets frustrated, has to hang up, and goes basically gallivanting, trying to like find someone for help, and he eventually obviously lands at Benicio del Toro, and this probably is the longest kind of continuous big sequence to me, is everything from meeting him, not that it's all, I mean there is cutaways to other scenes and things, but it's very very kind of, the pacing's very consistent where it keeps coming back to them, and it's like, okay, he meets him at the dojo, then they go back to like his place where like his family or people in the building own a store, and they go up and like he's got all these different Hispanic people and all these different apartments on the same floor, and basically he's kind of like the ringleader where they've got a plan, if like, hey, if ICE ever show up, like this is what we're going to do, we've got an escape route, we're going to do this and this, but he's helping Leo as well. He's like, hey, you can charge your fancy phone that can't be traced, you know, in my apartment, you can do that.
I like how you call it a fancy phone. They specifically use that phone because it's like first generation crap phone where like it doesn't have any bells and whistles to it. And they're not tracking it because they're unable to. They're tracking it because why would we bother tracking that old of technology? Yeah.
So it's like even just all of this has a lot of energy to it, because even when they're on the way to his place, there's like basically people are like protesting in the streets, and the police are trying to like make it look like they're getting violent so they can like start like, you know, attacking them, because they actually like, hey, send in someone with a Molotov on their side to make it look like
it's send in Eddie Van Halen, and this guy jumps out wearing a bandana and a Van Halen t-shirt with a Molotov, and we just follow him through the crowd of the protesters until he throws a Molotov at the police, and he's like, all right, that's our cue, rattle up your SWAT boards, here we go.
Yeah, great sense of direction. I love the pacing of actually following him through the crowd, right, because he does this feeling of time passing, but also building up, of course. But I love that once they make the order, hey, we're going to charge on them with the riot shields, we actually just kind of cut away after like the guy with like the smoke grenade launcher like fires some grenades, and we hear some screams, and we never actually see what happens to the crowd. It just kind of cuts away, and it's all sort of left to your imagination of like what they're going through as a result to this. Because, you know, I think it's right after this where we cut to Del Toro and Leo in the car, and like the skateboarders are like riding around, and they're part of like Benicio del Toro's crew, and they're like passing information. They come and help him get ready and like move stuff and all that.
Yeah, that's what I like so much about the Del Toro side of things, is that it's not the French 75. This is a separate group. Like you said, he's the ringleader of kind of like the Hispanic version of the Underground Railroad. This idea of like keeping them safe and making sure that like
it's exactly
no
what
one's going to be put in like ICE detention centers or anything. But I like how while Leo is kind of still freaking out a little bit, he's very high strung and all that, Del Toro's got just this cool, calm demeanor. It feels like he knows exactly what to do here, and he just keeps everything moving. He's constantly keeping the flow of things forward.
I think there's a lot to read into with this. One, just the general idea that Benicio del Toro's like family unit, or even his family, but his entire community that are all kind of banding together here, they feel very well oiled. Nothing feels like they're doing it for kicks. They're doing it for survival. This is not about the thrills. This is about, oh, we're going to get arrested and thrown in a camp or separated if we don't do something about it. So there's more of a necessity to it, which means they're treating it in a more serious way. And while it comes across as Benicio del Toro was very calm the entire time, it's also like, yeah, they've thought about this, they've rehearsed what to do in this situation. It's all very methodical, whereas Leo was freaking out because he's not thought about this in years, and he's not prepared for it, and he's a mess, and he's all these things. And I think that's one of the other things that it kind of maybe gets into a little bit with Leo's relationship with Perfidia. Now, Perfidia's obviously got her own problems, where she's kind of, again, the thrill seeker, and she'd be a revolutionist regardless of what the cause was. She'd find something to fight, to get this thrill from. But there is kind of this interesting idea with him, I think, where Bob as a character is like, he wants to help with a cause, right? He wants to help with this cause that's tackling deportation, that's tackling racism, that's tackling inequality, but he's a straight white guy, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You can want to help with those causes, and as someone who cares about those things, I would absolutely encourage to do so. But there's this kind of sense of like him being there and having to kind of like sort of make up, and like he can't quite match the energy of the people who are actually affected by it, right? And this is a good example with him and Benicio del Toro, where the way they're both treating this is so different, versus like, because he doesn't necessarily, like, if he wanted to just go and be a white guy somewhere, he could probably just get away with it. Maybe not now because he's done too much, but you know what I mean? Like, at some point he could have done that.
Right. I like it because it comes from this idea where if you look at it in any story, like obviously the threatening of the daughter, the taking of the daughter, whatever like that, it doesn't even need to be revolutionary. You could have the most straight-laced dad in the world and they'd still go through this whole arc to try to get their daughter back. That's absolutely a normal thing to do. But I like how we make the comparison jumping over where Del Toro's essentially doing the same thing. It's just his idea of family is larger. His idea that like his community, these people that have all come together and all know their place here, this is his family, and they're all going to band together to try to make things work as best they can. And they've essentially, over the course of this, we see adopted Leo into that. They're like, look, we're going to do what we can to help you out as best we can here. But like the community sticks together. That's what we do here. So I appreciate the idea that DiCaprio as a white guy is on the outside of the general idea of like, he's not going to be persecuted in the same way as this group. It's still the same root cause. It's still the same. They're both fighting for the same thing, just in their own ways. Oh,
sure. Yeah. I'm not questioning anything that Leo's character's fighting for, or if he should be fighting for it. He absolutely should. It's more just kind of this like disconnect where like, because he's kind of coming at it to begin with as an outsider, there's almost kind of this like, I don't know, extra effort to prove that you actually care about the thing, almost, right? So there's this extra energy being brought to it. And I'm not saying he's doing that in these scenes with Del Toro, but I'm saying that maybe in the earlier days, there's this extra like, oh, I've brought my cart of dynamite and stuff. Where do I set my fireworks off? Like, I'm really eager kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, I'd say in the prologue, there definitely was a little bit of eagerness, but here it just feels like he doesn't, like, honestly, whatever's going on with Benicio and all that stuff, well, he's there, he'll do whatever, but it doesn't feel like he's pushing for that. He's so locked in on his own thing.
Oh, yeah, the point I'm getting at, though, is the reason why he's so frantic is because he's been able to let it all go. Like, in these 16 years, he's been able to kind of, like, yeah, he's obviously stayed paranoid about them coming after him eventually, so he's taught his daughter this, and this, but the reason why he's forgot everything is because he could let himself forget everything. Like, he got complacent, he got lazy, in a way that Benicio del Toro in this community right now can't get lazy. They feel that they have to keep on top of this stuff. And it feels like a much healthier expression of what, you know, the French 75 were ever doing. Like, this feels like a much more, like, if there's like a model of like just good in this movie, it's this group. And maybe the daughter as well to an extent. Like, I think Will is obviously mostly a pretty good character you can root for.
I'll argue that slightly. And I get what you're saying, a model of goodness. That comes at it with this idea of playing defense. And that is something that I think this movie is a little bit better at playing both sides of here, is that while I do think, you know, don't do violence upon others or anything like that, the idea that you're only able to act, you should only be able to act defensively when other people come after you and stuff like that is the way that, like, the fascists end up winning. It's the idea that like you're not able to strike back, you're only able to defend your own goal, defend your own people and all that. You do need people to strike back and be more proactive, which is what the French 75 are. Whether it's morally good or anything like that, everyone's got their own lines there. I won't say which one it is, but like I think that to say that there is no goodness in the idea of striking back and being proactive about that stuff is short-sighted in a way. I know you're not saying that it's not, but you are saying that they're the model of good as the defensive side.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like striking shouldn't be done. I'm saying that the French 75 are clearly doing it in a way that there's thrill seeking is like a big proponent of it rather than the cause itself. So I will still critique their actions and how they're approaching it in this movie. I'm not disagreeing that action you can't just play defensively to beat fascism. I absolutely agree that you have to go kind of on the offensive to some extent.
Yeah. But
that's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that Benicio del Toro and his community feel that there's nothing to really like look at them and say, oh, they are doing something that I can't side with here. Right. Whereas the French 75, like by the time you get to the end of that prologue, there's multiple things where I'm like, maybe, I don't know, maybe don't do this or that, or maybe don't do this, or you know.
That's the thing. The proactive ones are always going to stir and like bring in agitators. They're always going to bring in people that like are doing it for the wrong reasons, and it's a matter of control over that. It's a matter of can we make sure that they don't do those sort of things. And yeah, it's a tough line to draw because I mentioned before, like you weren't familiar with it, but the John Brown stuff back in the Civil War, like he committed a lot of murder. He did a lot of horrible, horrible things on paper, just from like a legal standpoint. But he was doing them all because he absolutely hated the idea of slavery with every fiber of his being. So you got these weird lines that there's not a clear-cut place that you can draw them. It's this fuzziness to it. And as much as the French 75, yeah, they've got the thrill seekers or whatnot. If the end result is stopping the fascism, is it justifiable either way? Whether they're thrill-seeking or whether they're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, but I think the key thing, though, that I'm getting at here is that I'm not arguing what's ultimately right or what's worth doing to win in the end to beat fascism. I'm saying that in the comparison in the movie that we get of two different groups, this one is much healthier and seems much more well-spirited. It's like through and through versus the French 75. Like, I'm just going by what we were presented with in the movie, not about results, not about like the bigger picture, just what we're presented with here.
Yeah, and then I would also say around this time is where we also start getting the real demonstration of how the military is handling things on their end, like sending this military into the town and them doing very extra legal maneuvers here of like threatening like, oh, you give us a name and we won't arrest you and all this stuff. So it does definitely feel like there's kind of a horseshoe aspect to it where you've got the French 75 and the military on the extreme ends, and then you've got this group kind of in the middle in terms of their actions.
Let me make it clear here. The military in this movie are villains the entire time. Like, as much as there's points where I'm like, I don't know if I'm into what the French 75 are doing here, I am always against what the military are doing almost every step of the way in this movie. Especially Sean Penn, but even some of the other, like the main guy that interviews people that we see a few times, like every time he interviews someone, I'm like, oh, you're deplorable. This is horrible. Like, what are you doing?
Well, there's one bit, I think it's when we get back to the Christmas Club, we have them saying like, look, Sean Penn, he's gone off, he's done this stuff here, and they staged a raid on this chicken nugget factory or something because they're using it as like a smokescreen of saying like it's distributing heroin or whatever. Like they're just making stuff up to get into this town. But they specifically say, despite being the super racist club, they're like, yeah, but as much as that is completely staffed by Hispanic workers, it's owned by a white guy who's a member of our club, and he would like his workers to get back to work. And so it's still this thing where like, as much as they're saying like, oh, we have to eradicate these races or whatever, they're still using them. They're still like making them out to be like still necessary to the process. So it is villainous without any degree of even self-awareness. It's just top down like, no, they're just horrible.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, when I say this, they never actually say in the movie they want to eradicate anyone. They just like making it clear that they are superior to everyone.
That's true.
That's the phrasing, yeah.
Yeah, during the Sean Penn like initiation, as they're saying like, do you want the club? We need to do this background thing. They specifically say like, to be clear, membership in this club does not mean that you are the best man around. it just means you're better than everyone else. It's like, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah, so like I think they want a portion of workers to be around for cheap labor. I think that's something they absolutely do want. Also, the one guy in the Christmas club is like, I really like their chicken nuggets. Are we going to have a shortage now for a while because of this? Has Sean Penn forsaken me my favorite nuggets?
I love the idea that this group of racists sit around being like, we all love our chicken nuggies, guys. We love it when Mama makes the chicken nuggies, but we can't not have them be made.
Oh dear. So yeah, like so they do the whole thing where it's like he's on the phone for ages, he's arguing with this guy, and eventually, like the guy lets him speak to someone else who's been around for longer, and this guy's like, okay, so you're saying you're Bob, so and so. All right, well, back in the day, what did I say my favorite type of pussy was? And he's like, Mexican shaved, or I think that was the line.
Mexican hairless.
And he's like, yep, that's him. Apologize to him and tell him where the rendezvous point is. Mm-hmm. But Leo, this takes a long time to get to this, and it's like by this point, Leo's just not even like, oh, you're sorry, are you? You're sorry? Screw you.
Yeah, and that's where he asks, like, oh, by the way, what was the answer to that question? What time is it? What is that? And he's like, oh, well, time is a construct, and yet it controls us all. And he's like, screw you. You don't deserve to be a member of this group. Get out of here.
You pretentious piece of shit. Yep. So, yeah, and Benicio del Toro, like, sends him off with his skateboard crew, because he's going with everyone else. He's going with his, like, family and stuff in the tunnel.
Yes, I also just love when he's on the phone trying to get this guy. He specifically says, like, look, I don't know what time it is. And Benicio del Toro, who's in the bathroom, is like, 8:15.
Yeah, for a second I thought that was the actual answer he was looking for, rather than the actual time of the day. But but obviously once we get the answer, I'm like, oh, he was just telling him the actual time.
Yeah, because he doesn't know about the code words. That's not his group. Yeah,
so Leo goes with the skateboarders, and he's clearly, he's a bit older. He's trying to keep up, jumping from roof to roof and climbing up on ladders. And it all leads to so we have had this like long string, basically ever since they came after him in his place, arguably even since the daughter like left the school, to be honest, where everything's felt like it's just knocked on. Everything's just been propelling at a great pacing, and we're finishing it all off with this run across the rooftops, and then Bob just falls. He doesn't make a jump. He goes through some tree branches, which slow his fall a little bit, and he lands with a thud. He goes round the corner and immediately gets tased and arrested. And it's just so lucky for him that Benicio del Toro's character in this movie, the sensei, is such a like guardian angel who's got connections that he's able to help him out, that he even gets a chance to continue on his journey to go and find his daughter. That's the only reason why it happens.
Yeah, it's so subtle. I mean, they, like you said, there's a break there. I think we cut over to the daughter at the nunnery for a while, but when we cut back to Bob, he's just like on the ground. He's completely non-cooperative. He's making up names. Like, he's not helping out at all.
He's Batman.
And yeah, he's like, yep, my last name's Batman. It's like,
which reminds me, like, in the dojo, there was a Japanese poster for the original Superman movie in the background.
Yep, I saw that. And I was like, oh, hey, good taste. But then when he finally gets back, because he has to be checked out at like an ER or something like that since he got tased, the ER nurse is like, he makes up the name Jim Parker, but when the ER nurse is checking him in, he's like, all right, so are you still with us here, Bob? And Bob looks up and he's like, what? And she's like, oh, bad hombre. Like, she works it into a sentence, and that's something that he was called earlier.
And she's like, you're diabetic, right? And he's like, yeah. Yeah. And you didn't take your insulin yesterday, did you? And he's like, no, I didn't. It's like, oh, well, so that's how they end up. The nurse is like, hey, go down these stairs, blah, blah, get out this way. And Del Toro's waiting for him with a car, and they go on their journey. And we'll basically leave them for a while here, because there's a lot to talk about with Penn finding the daughter, right?
Yes. So the whole thing is that they make their way out of the dance, hop in the car, and just start driving. She said she didn't have a phone, but then later on, as the military is interrogating the friends, they all say, like, I don't know her number, I don't know if she has a phone, none of that stuff, until one of them, who is a non-binary character, is like spooked enough that he's like, okay, I'll tell you the number, here it is. And that lets them ping off a cell phone and know the direction that they're heading in, which is enough to pin down as they interrogate some locals. There's a nunnery called, I think the Order of the something Beaver or something like that. Am
Don't
I
ask me to
correct?
remember that. I was just
Yeah,
laughing
it's-
because you said the character was non-binary and then immediately said he, which I just
fair enough.
it just
Right.
made me chuckle because I'm like, oh, you couldn't have said them more closer together.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Anyway, and so yeah, I mean, there's a little bit there where she kind of learns that like what she knew about her mum was a lie, right? Because the nun's like, oh, her mother was a rat, and she like asked Deandra about it, like, was my mum a rat? And it's like, yeah, she kind of ratted a bunch of people out and got a lot of people killed. Like, you know, she's not really well liked, like, in our group all that much anymore, and she's been gone for a long time. Because she thought she was dead. Like, Willa thought, like, she was killed by Lockjaw. Like, that's what DiCaprio told her. But sure enough, because they make their way here, they you know, interview a gas station guy, like, along the way. They just see a car, and he's like, yeah. So they get to her, and one of the best scenes of the whole movie is actually when I mean, there's a really cool little scene actually when like Deandra realizes that there might be trouble, and she kind of backs out the room, like sort of just with like her finger over her lips saying shh, and she backs out, and then we just sort of hold on this wide shot where we can see the door entrance, and then like maybe 30 seconds later, soldier with a machine gun kind of comes in and immediately finds Willa, and it's like, oh shit. I actually kind of like the weird pacing to that of like, oh, that was that quick and it's all over. Like they've got her and she's thrown into a room with Lockjaw, who is sitting. There's this big sort of like church-like cathedral looking area, and there's this big epic wide cinematic shot with all this space between them, and he's like, come closer. And what I love about this sequence, and again, it's not all done in one single scene, like, you know, there is a couple of cutaways to whatever else is going on, and then it cuts away to Deandra being questioned by the other soldier guy once or twice. But I love the sense of time in this scene, because Lockjaw sits her down, swabs her mouth without even like asking her to like open. He just kind of like gets it in there. And then he opens up this briefcase that's got like some like tech in it. Like it's not quite a laptop, but it's you know, it's like a portable medical thing. And he puts the swab into like the little thing, and then he swabs his own mouth, and you're like, oh, this is like a portable like paternity test. Yeah, he's just going for it. And like she can clearly like see what he's doing, and she's obviously putting two and two together, and it's like, I love though that this isn't just cut away, cut back, and they've got results. I love the sense of, oh no, we're going to sit with them awkwardly as they're waiting for this test to run.
Oh yeah, and you get so much more of Willa's like character during this scene because she's been so passive before, like you've got to come with me, you've got to do whatever here.
This is the scene where she elevates to, oh, she's co-protagonist of this movie. Like this is equally her movie from this scene onwards.
Because you got them just sitting there, and obviously, depending on the results of the test, is going to change what Sean Penn does here. And he basically says like, if it comes up like not that there is no relation, then you're good to go. Like, apologies for the arresting part, but like you're good to go. And if it comes up that we are related, we're gonna have problems. And you see her just slowly needle into his mind, just like tiny little things that get to him. Like as they're just sitting there, she's like, I noticed you're wearing a tight shirt and you're wearing some lifts in your shoes and all that. And he's like, I'm not gay, if that's what you're saying. I am not a homosexual.
Yeah, there's that. She also, one of the first things she asks is if he like assaulted her mother, like, you know, was that forced, or did you love her in some way? Like, she's kind of, and he's like, oh, I'm not going to tell you those things. He does actually later say in the car, I did love her, if you must know. You know, and again, what sort of weird warped version of love he's talking about is open for debate, but
yeah, that was in the car later when he specifically when he's talking about her and she's saying like, oh, my mom was a rat, she was like no good, blah blah blah. He calls out saying like, she was a fighter. She had this undeniable fire in her, and you get that's what he was attracted to. This idea of like someone who is unstoppable in whatever it is they put their mind to.
But I mean, this scene goes on for some time, and he gets like angry a couple times, where I thought he might punch her or whatever at one point.
He gets right in their face. That's the mutt line you were talking about before.
Yeah.
I think she says something along the lines of like, look, even I can tell we're not related because that's, because at least I can read. And then he just like gets right in her face and just like, you don't get to talk to me, you mutt. And it's very loud, very
And she also responds with like, I don't care what that test says. I know who my father is, and he's not you. And I think that's another like a big thematic thing in this movie is that she is literally, because the test comes back positive, right? Like this is her father. She is literally the product of the extreme ends of both sides of the spectrum, right? Of this guy on the extreme right, this woman on the extreme left. And I think it's very, very fascinating that the products, I mean, one, it maybe suggests that the future of like some kind of revolution is a combination of ideas from both sides, perhaps. But I think it's more interesting to me that she picks the more loving father, for as flawed as he is, because obviously he has his flaws. He's clearly high too much, and he's clearly too protective in a lot of ways. But he still cares about her, and it comes from a good place, and she still picks that as the parental figure over like him. It's like she knows that, even like she's confronted right in this moment, because most people, I think, if they find out that who they thought was their parent isn't their parent, they have like a weird, like, at least in movies and TV shows anyway, they have like a weird period where they're questioning what that means and like, oh, is this not really my parent? And it's like, no, he is my father regardless of what this test is, and I'm more proud of him being my father than you. And I think it's interesting that by the end of the movie, when he does learn to sort of nurture her, and like, Bob's like, hey, yeah, if you want to go out and protest and stuff, I support that. Be careful, I have to let you fly though, kind of thing. It's this nurturing thing from Bob that sort of lets her go and be the new evolution, because it seems like at the end, as much as she's running out, and I know I'm talking about the ending here, but as much as she's running out to go to a protest and she wants to do activism stuff and she wants to do make a difference, it doesn't seem like she's exactly like her mother. Like, yes, obviously there's a couple of moments where like, oh, you've got her fire in you, you're the daughter of a rat, so that makes you a rat. There's like, people make these weird assumptions. But at the end of the movie, it feels like she is definitely in a more healthy middle ground of like how she's approaching her activism.
That's what you were bringing up, the idea of like, these two opposite sides or whatever, but both of those sides are hallmarked with violence. They're hallmarked with the idea of you can only achieve what you need to by violence. And I think by the end of the movie, we make it very clear that Willa, and by extension Leo raising her, is compassion. It's this idea that like, I don't want to say the line, but there's a line in The Last Jedi which I disagree with in a lot of fundamental ways, but it's the idea of like, you don't get what you want by destroying what you hate, you do it by saving what you love. And I think that this is a smarter way to show that. It's this idea that like, it's kind of what the Benicio del Toro plot was, is this idea of, you can go out, you can protest, you can make change, not by causing destruction or anything like that, but by building each other up, by making each other better to fight against these threats in a more indirect way.
The French 75's most like sympathetic thing they do is the very first thing they do, which is breaking these people out of this detention center, because there's nothing like, unless for some reason you're in full support of what like they're doing here, there's no reason to feel bad about this. Whereas later on, once they start blowing up buildings, like, okay, you're saying it's after hours, but is there like a janitor in there that you've not like accounted for? Like, this could get someone hurt potentially that's innocent, so on and so on.
I mean, the movie doesn't play on those points, but yeah, if you go down that path, it is something to be more concerned about.
It definitely feels more reckless, is the point I'm getting at, though. I'm not like, regardless of like specific details, it feels more reckless.
Well, I mean, by the point that we get to the bank robbery, I think that's the point, is to show that they did get more reckless. Regardless.
Oh, that's even more reckless. That's like super reckless. So the whole, because it's not saying that you like can completely avoid violence. Willa, by the end of the movie, has to use some violence, right? She has to do it to survive and to get out of it. And it's not saying that you can somehow avoid violence entirely if you are going to like stick up for yourself and so on. But she's not going out looking for it. And I think one of the key visuals, before Sean Penn even shows up at the nunnery and they have this big scene with the paternity test, is there's a moment that day where she's firing a machine gun. It's the exact same shot of her mum when she was pregnant, firing the machine gun. And notably, at the end of her scene of firing this machine gun and learn how to use the gun, she doesn't turn around and yell out, "Oh, I feel like Tony Montana." She doesn't like treat it like, "Oh, this is cool, I feel like a badass." She's silent. She's taking it seriously, which already shows a different in character. And then we already know she's been doing martial arts, and we see her still kind of practicing that stuff. It feels like, yeah, she's very capable physically, but it's not because she wants to go out and like look for a fight necessarily either. So, you know, there's a lot of depth to the character that really starts to come into play, particularly in this big set piece with Sean Penn.
So once we get the paternity test,
and just
stuff.
One more detail here. She's also completely innocent in all this, right? She didn't ask for any of this. This is all baggage of like her parents and like everything they've lumped onto. This is like, like you get birthed into the world and the previous generations messed everything up, so you have to grow up in this world dealing with it. And that's and this is the most literal version of that possible, with her being targeted by Sean Penn and military and whatnot.
Yeah, look, we all know Leo loves his environmental movie. If we're going to talk about the idea of the previous generation screwing thing up, I see why he would have signed on for this one, because it's very easy to make that connection. So yeah, we get the positive paternity test. He drags her out. All this time over in Leo's plot, they're making their way to the area where they're supposed to go, the nunnery, and eventually some cops lock onto Del Toro's car. And they have this, it's a comedy sequence for all intents and purposes, where they're like, look, when we take this turn, you're going to slow down a little bit, and then Leo's going to jump out, and you're going to tuck and roll, and then you'll be on your way. I'll deal with the cops later. And I love the moment where he like is propped up in the window. He's ready to jump. He's got his gun and all that. And they're like, all right, and go. And he's like, slow down a little bit. And he's like, go now, do it. And Del Toro has to like swerve the car over a little bit just to jolt him out of the window because he's not willing to jump. And you get this, I mean, it was shown back in the parkour scene as well, but you get this idea of like, he's too old for this. He needs to pass the torch. There's no way he can keep running this anymore.
Yeah. Which is actually another thing I really like about this, is he doesn't actually save his daughter. Obviously, there's a reunion, and obviously he gets to take her home, but she's saved herself, and I think that's very specifically chosen. That's very intentional that he doesn't like come in and like save the day at the end. She saves her goddamn self. So and not without the help of someone along the way, of course, and that's also a part of this, is that someone had a moral line they would not cross, and we'll get to that. But yeah, so she's with Sean Penn. He's going to take her away. He wants to kill her. He's got this bounty hunter coming in that he's going to try and pay, and the bounty hunter's like, yeah, I'm not killing a kid. Like, I like, no. He's like, I'll pay you triple your daily rate. Still no, not happening. Okay, I'll pay your daily rate to just go and deliver her to this group of like neo-Nazis or something. I don't even know what they are.
Just a militia group where he's like, they'll definitely do it. I just need you to get her there.
Yeah, and he's like, all right, fine. And she actually tries to fight and run away here, and like she makes like Sean Penn has to tackle her to the ground, and he gets like all covered in dirt and whatnot, and it's like, oh, she's a fighter, she's got that fire in her, she's trying to survive. And when she's in the car with the bounty hunter says, hey, is anyone going to come looking for you? And she says yes, like they're definitely coming, and we know that's true because we've been following DiCaprio on his way the entire time.
I mean, even then, I think she knows that as well, not just from idealism, but when they were leaving, when Sean Penn was loading her up in the truck, Leo caught up to the nunnery and was like firing shots off, trying to stop them from getting loaded in. So if she heard any of that, she's like, yeah, no, somebody's going to come after me. We know what's up here. We do have to rewind and talk about the Christmas Club.
Because that was like in the middle-ish somewhere. So we see this character we didn't really know before, right? Who goes to a house in the suburbs somewhere, but it's a pretty big house.
It's apparently the summer mansion that previously belonged to Ronald Reagan. So right on point, right up there. And
he's making niceties with the old woman who lives here, and she's like, "Oh, I'll make you some pancakes before you leave," and whatever. And he goes downstairs. There's a giant underground complex that apparently like every house in the neighborhood can access this tunnel. And he goes to the secret meeting room in the middle, and like we see the members of the Christmas Adventurer Club here, including an old guy who's like, and he respects them all. They're making their little signs. They're saying "Hail Saint Nick" and all the rest of it. And they basically say, "We've heard a rumor, unsubstantiated up until this point, but if it's true, it could be a big problem. Turns out Colonel Lockjaw, who we're considering, might have a half-breed, I think is the term he uses here in this scene.
Something like that.
And he's like, well, that would be a big deal if it's true. What's your source if you don't... Because honestly, the way he walked into this scene, I was like, oh, is he in trouble? It feels like they're going to whack him, like the way that he's coming in and they're... It's like, no, he's here because they're going to ask him to go and solve this problem. And by solve this problem, oh, we want you to kill both the girl and Lockjaw. We want everything into this wiped clean. So he's like a sort of wild card from the Christmas Adventurers Club that's going to come out of the third act and be an extra layer.
In the movie, they play it off fine. It works. But in recounting it, every time we say Christmas Adventurers Club, I feel like we're talking about a goddamn Nancy Drew movie. Like, it just feels like the most childish name I could possibly imagine.
I think it's pretty intentional that we're looking at the secret fascist group as a bunch of spoiled children, frankly.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes complete sense.
Just like, audience, without having seen the movie, I'm assuming there's at least a few of you. Does Christmas Adventure Club sound terrifying at all? Even when we say that they're fascist, racist, whatever, do they sound terrifying at all?
So, yeah, like, they're plotting this that sets up, there's got this extra element coming into the third act. So, the big thing with Willa here is she's taken to this militia group. The bounty hunter leaves her, like, handcuffed to the table or the chair outside this little hut, and he walks back to his car, but he looks back, he clearly... You know, he's not quite happy with this. He's not willing to do it. And you see, like, the guy that he leaves her with, like, the guy sitting outside, he's like, you know, he has kind of an attitude where he doesn't care that he's going to have to kill this girl.
They say during that Christmas Adventure Club scene that this bounty hunter is, like, 1/4 Native American or something like that. Like, he's not pure, and that's why they look at him just like, oh, disgusting or whatever. And you get that from this guy as well. I think he calls him, like... I'm unfamiliar with the slur, but he calls them some sort of slur for Native Americans.
Yeah, you get the tone of it, even if you don't understand the word use. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like he's looking back, he sees what he's leaving this girl to, and he makes the choice to grab his shotgun from the car, come back, uncuff her, and then... Well, to quote Danny DeVito, anyway, he started blasting and goes down and gives her a chance of escaping, basically.
And again, much like the street police scene, the protesting scene, we don't stick around with the gunfire. Like, we follow her as she goes and tries to escape on her own, but it's a push-to-start car, and the keys are no longer in the car, so...
Yeah, it's a very, like, tense sequence because, you know, we follow her to the car, she tries to get in, the button won't work, and she's like, shit, I need to go back. But we don't know if he got every guy in this group. Like, there could be someone sneaking around still. But she gets the keys, she goes back, and then she's driving in this guy's car. And this is where we kind of switch over to the car chase portion of the movie, which is kind of wild, actually.
Well, to comment on one thing, yes, there is a car chase, but the one thing that happens is after Sean Penn drops off Willa with the bounty hunter, he's chased down by this other car, no idea who it is, and then all of a sudden it pulls up next to him. We see it's the Christmas Adventure Club guy, and he just takes a shotgun to the face.
Yep, Sean Penn goes driving off the road, presumably dead. I mean, he's not, we find out later, but presumably dead at this point.
And Leo was on the track of that car because he saw it when they were loading up at the nunnery. So he eventually comes across it, realizes she wasn't in the car, and then is like, I got to turn around because I saw there were like 2 other cars passing me in the other direction, and I have a feeling that they were the people I need to be chasing.
Yeah, Leo fired off some shots, got scared, and then all he's doing for the rest of the movie is try to catch up to everything, basically. Which fits his character, to be honest, because again, like I say, he's not really the protagonist now of this movie. It's shifted.
Anymore, no.
It's shifted to the daughter, which works thematically. It works as a structure. So they do this thing where, as we're following her in the car, and she's looking over the mirror, and she's looking behind her, and this desert road's got a lot of like hills up and down. We do some really fun shots here where like she like drives downhill and goes out of frame, and then we're looking at road for like, I don't know, 10 seconds, and then turns out that the hill comes back up before it gets to the camera, so she comes back up into frame. But then we see the bad guy's car, you know, the adventurer guy's
doing
car.
The same thing,
And it's like, oh shit. And there's a lot of, and it's like she's sort of looking over, and she's like and they're getting faster, and it's like they've not even like confirmed, like she's not even 100% sure that she's been followed necessarily yet, but it already feels so tense because we know he's trying to get to her and that he will just kill her. He won't even wait. Yeah. He won't talk to her like Sean Penn did. He's just going to shoot her in the face. So we have to, we have to worry. It's like, oh, how's she going to get out of this?
Yeah, and that's the other part of it, is the setting of it. You are in the middle of a desert. There is nothing to hide behind. There are no off-roads. It is just this single stretch.
Except the one thing they've just set up visually is the road going up and down in hill formations is the one potential cover you might get. So what I like about the way this ends is that it's her being proactive, doing something very smart, and not doing something for thrills. It's something that's very tactical. She basically gets over a hilltop so that she'll be out of view for a moment, stops the car, runs off to the side of the road, and she's got like a handgun that she got from the car from the bounty hunter, and she just waits to see what happens when this guy catches up.
And the sun is in his eyes as well as you crest the hill, so you don't get an immediate visual either.
So he, as soon as he sees the car, he's like, oh, he's too late. He's like a meter behind it, and he crashes into it. So she's lying there waiting with her gun out, and he eventually gets out, and she yells out some of the code words that we heard earlier on. She yells them out, like a few of them, and he's like, sorry, I don't understand. And credit to her, she immediately pulls the trigger and shoots him.
Yep.
And it's like, she is surviving right now because she is doing the obvious smart thing. She's not, like, because so many movies would give you this moment, but the character would hesitate and, like, give them more chances to try and, like, convince them and say, hey, miss, what's wrong with you? She just, like, nope, I'm taking the shot.
The past 18 hours have been really, really hard on me, and I would like to continue to live.
But I like that a lot.
He pulls out his own gun, like trying to fire back. She just unloads like most of the rest of the clip, just already gone. But then that's where Leo pulls up. And in any other movie, in any other spot, this is where the strings will swell and it'll be like, oh, honey, I'm so glad I found you. Like, let's go. Let's get out of here. And movie starts to wrap up. But this has to have one more card to pull, which is she, at the nunnery, learned that her mom was a rat. And so she doesn't trust anybody right now. So as her dad gets out of the car and is like, hey, honey, I'm here. I found you. She says the code words again. And she's like, you got to prove to me that this is on the up and up, that you're not something to do with all this.
And he kind of like doesn't it at first, now he remembers the first couple, and he's like, honey, it's me. It's me. Yeah. He throws down his weapon. He's like, it's just me, please. Like, right. And she eventually kind of like it's almost like the adrenaline from having to kill this guy to protect herself is really put her into defense mode. But she sort of lets it finally kind of like dissipate a little bit, and she's like, oh, it is you, Dad, and goes over and hugs him. And we have kind of this a sweet moment. And then so we propel after that. We get one shot of Sean Penn walking down the road with his face just bloody as hell.
He look, as much of a dorky character he is with the way he talks and the way he walks and all that, walking down with just blood down your face holding machine gun, he looks badass. I'm not gonna say he doesn't. Yeah.
He looks like this sense of determination. And the epilogue he gets is kind of like entertaining, but also shows the folly of like his side of all this, right? So if you're comparing the right and the left here on the extreme ends, and you've got the problems on the French 75 with this idea of the thrill seeking and this idea of like, and again, the comparisons between him and Perfidia is that she ratted everyone out and ultimately wasn't true to what, on his side, he was willing to throw his own daughter that he might have otherwise cared about under the bus because he really wanted to be in the secret races club. And he goes to them, his face is completely altered because of this injury of the shotgun blast to the face.
He's got like a cleft lip now, and he's been messed up.
He explains to them when they're asking about, oh, we've heard about this child, did you have this child? He says he was reverse raped, which, and then he explains it, and I'm like, Sean, or I should say Lockjaw, my man, that's not, you don't have to put in the word reverse. That's still, like, it's not reverse because a woman's doing it to a man, you idiot.
No, it's, okay, so I thought the same thing. But that's not what he said. His actual lines of what happened that night, of what he claims, is that he was drugged, and being drugged, he forced himself upon someone else. So he was not in control of his actions, but he was like the one who did the action.
Yes, but he still called her a sperm thief, and then
a semen demon as well.
Yes, that's what they say next. They refer to it as a semen demon.
Yes,
and it's like
so. Yeah, the terminology is stupid, and it's just him. Like, it feels like, again, that macho masculinity sort of thing. I'm not wanting to admit that, like, even in this made up story he has, that he doesn't want to give that up.
And that's the thing. They say, why would they possibly want to do this to you? Mm-hmm. And his answer to that is, well, because they saw my superior mind and body and wanted it. Or they wanted to create a child from it. I'm like,
yep,
all right. So,
and I like, from an audience perspective, like, we're hearing this story, we're watching these two members of this club who, this is his like final check-in. This is his like, you know, we're gonna make our decision if you're in the club or not.
I mean, not really, but yeah, go on.
Yeah, not really, but like their phrasing is that, and you just see their faces, and as an audience member, it's just like, no one's buying this. No one is really buying this, right?
No, this is the equivalent of someone trying to cover up a crime they did with just the most absurd excuse possible.
Yeah, it's like, I didn't rob that liquor store. I walked in, and a gun fell into my hands, and everyone else just made assumptions based off of that. I'm completely innocent here.
Yeah, so they give him his corner office. He's got a nice big view, and he's like, "Oh, I left the keys back in my office. You sit hang around here. I'll go get them.
Let me just close this airtight door real quick."
He gets gassed. He's sitting in the chair, he's enjoying the view, and then he hears the hiss, and he starts to pass out. And we literally see like his body be like wheeled to a furnace, and he just gets dumped into. It's like, yeah, this side just completely just shat you down the toilet. The second you didn't fit their ideal views, they turned on you like that. There was no sense of loyalty. There was no sense of anything.
Which, I mean, that's the whole fascist playbook. The idea that like, there's no such thing as an in-group that cannot be made smaller. As soon as they need like someone to throw under the bus, it's absolutely going to be someone from their own group.
Yep. So that's how his plot wraps up in the movie.
That's the part that I felt was a little bit Deus Ex. I appreciate it for the irony of it, but it does feel like how, from the perspective of Willa and Leo's character, I feel like, you know, they didn't have anything to do with that. For all of the stuff in his plot, they never had anything to do with that, and it just got wrapped up independently. And I'm not saying it's a wrong choice. It does feel like a natural conclusion to that plot, but for wrapping up the whole movie, it does feel a little bit like, well, we just assume that he's off the board now, and we don't need to worry about him.
I mean, they could have just not had him survive the shotgun to the face, and it would have been just quicker. So I don't have a problem with this, because I was so entertained by his bullshit reasoning.
No, it's a fun scene.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's a fun scene. It's a nitpick entirely, because I'm glad we had that scene. But I think it would have worked better if he was like, the moment he did it, just gunshot to the face, and then he's out. Like, we didn't have this extra.
Sure. But like, I do like the thematic choice, though, of him still thinking he can get in here, him still thinking he can be a part of this club. And like, no, they've already decided you're dead. Like, they're just hearing what your bullshit excuse is so they can lure you into this office, and that is it. Like, the cards, you've been officially not accepted to this club since before the halfway point of this movie, and you just never knew it.
Yeah.
You've been a lost cause this entire time, and that's kind of beautiful. I do really like that. So yeah, we have the letter, though. We have, like, you know, we see that Leo and Willa are doing better, and he's like, hey, I've been sitting on this letter for a couple of years that your mum sent. It's addressed to you. I'll let you go read it. And she has this heartfelt letter about, you know, I think about you every day, and, you know, all the choices I made, blah, blah, blah.
I wonder if I made the right choices. I don't know if I would do anything differently, blah, blah, blah.
I hope one day you'll find me. I will say, I think the tone of this and the sentimentality feels a little unearned, just because I think Perfidia at this point, because we're never going to see like why or how she's changed and regrets like her choices, which she might have done. It's been 16 years. She's grown a lot, presumably, in that time.
We haven't heard about any other bombings around the Americas or other countries.
But I think because of the way she left the movie, and I love that they left her completely at that point, and she has just been this like ghost over everything that's affected like all of her main characters to some extent. Both like, you know, the family directly, but even Sean Penn's character, there's this specter of her and what she did in the past hanging over everything. I think this just felt a little too happy. And I think I would have preferred just a scene where he has a heart-to-heart with her and it gets honest about what happened or something, and sort of like says, yeah, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to allow you to be, you know, what you want to be now, kind of thing. I think the letter from her saying, oh, I hope you'll fight the good fight in your way, was maybe just a little bit on the cheesier side for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I'm a bit torn between A, not having the letter at all. I think that, you know, you can have these moments at the end without having that. Or B, and this requires a much more deft touch. Have it be the letter shows like she hasn't changed. Make the letter like, you know, she still is very like narcissistic in a way, very much locked in on her own stuff and her own ideals and not really caring about other people.
That'd have been better.
And then you can have this thing where the daughter actively rejects that notion and goes over to the dad. And it's just like, you know, it's a moment between them saying like, she must have been awful. This is no good for either of us. Let's move on from this.
It doesn't betray anything else I like about the ending, so it's not a huge deal, all things considered. It's just such a sweet tone as she's reading it. They just didn't feel right given where that character left off. I wish there was still a little bit of bittersweetness to it or something. But certainly this idea that she's, you know, embracing her father because, like, you know, he's been here. He's, you know, he's not always made the right choice, but he's always tried to make choices. He's always tried to do something, kind of thing. So yeah, the movie ends with her listening to the police scanner or whatever, hearing that there's a protest of some kind.
Leo's finally got a smartphone. He's moved on. He's in the current generation.
And he's accepted that she's going to go off and do this, and he lets her go, and the movie ends with her getting in the car, and the title comes up.
And I think the ending line is like, all right, you have fun, be safe, and she says, never. Or like, not a chance, something like that.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just this idea that she's going to, you know, be an activist, continue doing this kind of thing, but maybe in a better way, because the new generation tends to learn a little bit from the last generation, usually, because she's finally unburdened with the specter of what her mother kind of left, ultimately. And so is Leo. Leo gets to, you know, finally maybe start living in the real world a little bit again, finally.
Yeah, no, I mean, this movie, honestly, if you view it in a more broad sense, it's kind of this representation of a generational trauma and then healing from that. It's this idea of something that is beyond both of their controls, how it impacted them, how they have to wrestle with it, and then how they move on. And like you said, Willa is innocent. She came into this without ever having done anything, but she's still held responsible for her mother's sins. She still has to deal with the fallout of that and then move on from it.
Yeah. And it doesn't seem like Leo ever finds out about Lockjaw being the father, does it?
Not on camera, but it also seems like the sort of thing like eventually someone would, like Willa would be like, by the way, I feel like you should know this.
Maybe she'll choose not to tell him though. Maybe she'll like, nah, I'm just going to let you think I'm your daughter just because we've got a good thing going here. I'm not going to mess it up. I don't know.
No, that's fair.
But yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the movie. To be fair, it's 2 hours 40 minutes. I do think it's well paced despite that. The only real critique maybe is that the first 45 minutes does feel so separate and clearly a prologue to the main story that comes later, that it's a little bit like you can kind of see the structure a little bit. You can see like the matrix code as you're watching that first chunk.
I mean, I get what you're saying, and I think I might have felt that way if I was more ingratiated with like the trailers or had more of an idea of what the movie was going to be. But I went in pretty blind, and I think I was almost expecting it to be a There Will Be Blood sort of situation, where it is just kind of like jumping through the life and times of this group, or at least, you know, Leo as a central character of that. The fact that it locked in at a certain point to being Leo and his daughter, in hindsight seems obvious, but I don't think as I was watching the prologue, I felt like that was always going to be the case.
Yeah, I mean, I can't erase the trailers from my brain, so I kind of knew what the main premise was going to be. So I was just kind of Like, I was like, oh, this is a long prologue sequence. This is why the movie's 2 hours and 40 minutes long, is because we're spending all this time. And to be fair, all of it, or almost all of it, enhances everything that comes later. So it's valuable to have it there. It's just kind of a weird structural divide where it's almost not like it's even like Act 1. It's like giant prologue, and then there's 3 acts after that almost, it feels like.
Yeah. Because I would say... Would I say end of act? That's the thing. The whole sequence of like Benicio del Toro helping him get out and like ending with the cop scene. I would love to say that's the end of Act 1, but it feels far too late for that. I feel like Act 1 ends with the beginning of that sequence, and then that would be Act 2, and then there's like an Act 3 and an Act 4.
Aye. Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't follow a traditional act structure, I guess, is the big thing.
Yeah, that's what we're getting at here, I suppose. Yeah, it doesn't follow traditional act structure. I think that's absolutely accurate. So cool. It's very good though. Like, I think the themes here are strong. The characters are strong. I think by the end, it did a really good job of making me care about Willa, because she's the innocent one. She's the one I want to survive, and it was really satisfying to see her win on her own against someone who they very quickly had made very intimidating. So yeah. Very good. All right, David, what are you rating one battle after another?
Jesus. You know, I've expressed, maybe not in this show, but over other shows, my lack of faith in you. My lack of faith of getting good movies and stuff out of here. Just looking at the last season there with disaster movies, we did not have a good run there at the end. I was a little bit...
I never promised you those would be good movies.
I know you didn't promise me, but like I feel like anytime we come into these seasons, I'm just bracing for the worst a lot of times. We had good for Sidney Lumet. I'll give you that.
I don't look at it and say it out loud and spoil it. I want you to know though that I intentionally swapped in something for extra reels in a very close month.
Okay.
And it's a treat. It's a treat.
I saw that. I don't know what it is, so I'll Google it later.
No, don't look up. Right?
Oh, don't look it up. Okay.
Don't look up. Right? You want to go in blind.
I'm terrified.
It's a treat because I just watched it and I know. You're going to have a good time. So right. and that's the show where it's usually punishment.
Where I usually hate myself. Okay, fair enough. But my end of sentence there is usually I don't have faith in you. But looking
end of
at
sentence? Sentence?
Hail Saint Nick. I usually don't have faith in you, but looking at this 2025 season, if this is all going to be even close to this caliber, if this is the sort of stuff that like the award season is looking at this year, I'm down for it. Like this is a great start to that. I really like this movie. I really like the tone it's going for, this larger ideals. Obviously, the themes are more focused on like the family aspect and the idea of like growing up, moving out of this generational trauma. But I even just like the backdrop. I like this setting of like, hey, people, like, give a shit. Like, go out and do something for the things you care about. Don't just let things pass you by and like force themselves upon you here. So overall, top to bottom, I think this is a fantastically made movie, timed just perfectly. Like if this was released like mid-Obama years, I don't think it would work. Right here, mwah, chef's kiss. Great time for it to be out.
I think there was a reason why it went into production when it did.
Yep. So, point-wise, I mean, between everything that we said in the ratings rundown, I cannot, by any good measure, give it less than an 8. And honestly, I think I'm at the 9. I think that this is something where I may not come back to it immediately. It may not be something that I am going to sit down and watch like multiple times a year or anything like that. But if somebody is asking like, you know, oh, hey, what's a good movie we can sit down and watch? This is in the running. This is something that like, I'd say, yeah, sure. Check this out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. I'm giving it a 9. It's a 9 out of 10. But, part of it's that I know the ratings I gave it for all the categories on ratings rundown, but part of it's just after talking about it, there's enough here to talk about and talk about themes and talk about characters and ideas and the representation of stuff, but it's also kind of just a fun ride as well. Yep. There's thrilling elements that I wasn't expecting. And the biggest thing I'm impressed by, and I talked about this in the ratings rundown as well, but just to reiterate here at the end for my rating here, is that the shift to the daughter becoming the protagonist and the fact that feels so satisfying when it happens and that leading to a very satisfying ending, I think is the master stroke of the movie. I think it's the best thing about the movie, and I I give it points for that. I think without that shift, it may not be getting to the 9 for me, but with it, 9 out of 10.
If you don't have that shift, you get like the modern day like Star Wars sort of feel where it's like, oh yeah, don't worry, this next generation is totally the ones that are going to take over, but we haven't quite let go of the previous generation yet. Like this one feels like, no, we have seamlessly moved into the next generation. Let them be fruitful.
Yep. So there you go. That is one battle after another. Our first episode of 2025 season.
Doesn't make the cut.
Well, yeah, obviously it makes the cut.
Well, we've got make the cut, and then for things that get up to like the 9 level, we have the discussion of, is it a cut above?
There's an argument to be made here for that. But, that does feel like we're really putting it on a pedestal at that point.
True. I'm the only thing I'm worried about this movie is how timeless it will feel. Like I said, it's very, very specific right now of feeling very present and feeling very much of the kind of zeitgeist that we're in. I'm wondering if this is something that is kind of just an eternal restlessness that people are going to have and they can always relate to this movie, or if it's something that is going to kind of be dated to where we're at now as a culture.
I mean, I think a couple of the specific things they do are maybe going to be specific to the time period that we're in. But I think the broad ideas are going to be pretty timeless. So
okay.
I suspect it'll probably be fine in that sense.
All right. Either way, I will put in for a able to be negotiated, but I will say cut above. I do feel like it is one of those things where if it wins a crap ton of Oscars, I will not be surprised, and I think it deserves it.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue. If you feel that strongly about it, I'm kind of teetering. So why not? Okay. On it goes.
Woo.
Cut above. Yep. So this is a 10 film season, 10 films from 2025. And if this goes well, and it started off quite well this year, seemingly, then you can expect it for 2026 next year, around the February, March kind of time frame. So what is coming next week, you might ask then, on our 2025 season? The next film we are doing is a film called Train Dreams, which is not as, we intentionally picked a really big one that everyone's going to have heard of for the first one. Some of these will be a little bit more lower key, but hopefully their reputation leads to some gold here. So yeah, Train Dreams is next. I believe it is available on Netflix, this one, so an easier one perhaps for everyone to watch along with if you want to watch it before the review goes out next week. But that is what's coming up next time on the Collector's Cut. And of course you can support the Collector's Cut and help keep it coming, as well as the other shows we do. We mentioned the Atomic Cinema Experiment, the other sci-fi movie podcast that is every week as well, along with Collector's Cut. Keep both of those going, and you can get access to things like Extra Reels, our monthly show where we review some of the worst movies ever made. Sometimes they're so bad they're good, sometimes they're torture. And like I was saying, there's one coming up in about 2 months' time that is definitely so bad it's good, right? I'm giving David an olive branch, a gift, a treat, if you will.
Let me. You say an olive branch 2 months out. Let's see what's in the middle. Oh, 3 pieces of crap. Thank you.
We've already recorded one of those, so you've got 2 pieces of crap.
Makes it. I guess that's all right then.
You have to eat your veggies if you want to get the dessert.
How can you have your pudding if you don't eat your meat?
So you get that, you get the ratings rundown segments for each episode, all that stuff. But most importantly, your help keeping the show coming. This is obviously very independent, so thanks to everyone who already does support the shows. If you can't, don't feel bad. Just, like, subscribe, watch, share, worship, all the usual things.
Go out into the street, build a sign, says watch Mild Fuzz, protest to the masses.
Yes. But that is the show, so thank you once again for joining us. We do appreciate it. Keep watching movies, and if you can get it, it's always nice to have diplomatic immunity.